Good evening to the December 21st Newmarket Town Council meeting. Let us begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I have a motion to seal the minutes from the non-public, please?
So moved.
Second.
Seeing no lights, please call the roll.
Council Burns.
Aye.
Council Bowden.
Aye.
Council Pike.
Aye.
Council Thompson.
Aye.
Council Weinstein.
Aye.
Council Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Councilor Nazaro is out this evening, just so everyone knows. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Seeing none, I'll close public at 7:10. Do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes for 11/30/2016?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I just want to be sure that was I had a couple of changes. Was that the goals? I think that was the goals meeting or not? 11:30 was goals, wasn't it?
Non-public, yeah.
Does anybody have any changes or questions?
Are we on the non-public or the public?
Regular.
I'm in the regular meeting minutes, 11/30/2016. I think that was the goal setting.
Yeah.
And one on page 2 of the minutes, it's just a typo, 162.
Okay.
There was excellent work being done to come up. Just a secretarial type thing. That's all.
Anyone else? I have just a couple, I think. On page 5, and I think it's line roughly 118, it said Chairman Levy was the goals. It said see zero-based budgeting for the town to start and plan a budget, not tart. Typo. Let's see. I think there were a couple quickies, if you give me a second. Just check. I want to make sure I got it right. Okay. On page 14, I think that's the same minutes. If it isn't, tell me now. I can't keep track of all these. On page 14,
Are we in the next set of minutes at 4?
is that the other set?
That's another set of
Okay,
minutes.
okay.
The
Then
one
we're-
we're on ends at page 7.
Good. Then we're all set. Seeing no other lights, please call the roll.
Council Burns.
Aye.
Council Bowden.
Aye.
Council Pike.
Aye.
Council Thompson.
Aye.
Council Weinstein.
Aye.
Council Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
You know, when I get, not to digress, but when I get my little zip drive, it doesn't give me the agenda, so I don't have any bookmarks.
Okay.
So I can't see with the minutes, I can't click to the minutes. I don't know if they can add that in, but it's, I
Okay.
can only do my comments. That's why I didn't know where it ended. Do I have a motion to accept the non-public meeting minutes for 11/30/2016?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any changes? Questions? Please call the roll.
Council Burns.
Aye.
Council Bowden.
Aye.
Council Pike.
Aye.
Council Thompson. Council Weinstein.
Aye.
Council Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
And lastly, 12/7/16 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I have-
Second.
Thank you. And that's the one I had, oh, I'm sorry, anybody else?
I have one on
Counselor Pike?
yeah, it's page 9 of the whole packet, page 9 of 99, line 67. It said let's see, how do I make it clear? The change, or the word penalty.
Vice Chair Nazaro asked if the penalty went to the contractor or DOT.
Yeah, that's not supposed to be penalty, I don't think. I think he's asking if if the, well, I guess, is that penalty meaning the money?
I believe
I
he
don't-
means the liquidated damages.
Sounded right.
Because I thought what he asked at that time, well, maybe that is what it was, so maybe I've got that wrong and that's correct. Because I thought, as I recall it, that he was asking about whether the blame went to the contractor or DOT. Because it wouldn't make sense to say that the money goes to the contractor, the penalty is coming from the contractor. I think what it was asking is, it asked if, or the blame, the responsibility, to use another word, went to the contractor.
Maybe you can clarify that with Counselor Nazaro and be clear on what he was intending to say, because I'm not sure either.
Because if it's money, it doesn't come from the contractor and go back to the contractor, so the question wouldn't have made sense.
Well, if they were penalized for not doing their work or holding back money, theoretically, it wouldn't go to the contractor or DOT. It would-
80% of it already says above there, in the line above, that town would get 20% and the state would get 80% of the penalty. So that's covered in the previous paragraph. I think what he was saying at the time, as I recall, is kind of asking who was really responsible for the delay, who was at fault, I thought. But I think it needs to be clarified at any rate.
All right, so can you do that, Steve?
Yep.
And then, is there anything else? On page 14, go ahead, guys, what do you need? They having trouble with the computer, or? No, it's still,
I decided to update
it's
stuff,
printed
so I
as
don't have
updated.
any of my notes or anything, so.
well, do you want to try to, can we address it, Steve?
It's not,
No,
it's
it's
running
nothing
to
you can
recycle, I
do.
can't stop it.
Sorry.
I'll just tell everyone that the old zip drive, it's low tech, but it works.
Your computer probably not updated a long time either.
On page 14, it said, Vice Chair Levy reiterated that the issues were the boards rather than the chairs. I think this, you meant Vice Chair Nazaro, because I didn't say that, I don't believe. See that? I think that was Phil, not me. And that was the only other one that I have. So if you can make that change, you can figure out, Phil, what he meant. Please call the roll.
Counselor Burns.
Aye.
Counselor Bowden.
Abstain.
Counselor Pike.
Aye.
Counselor Thompson.
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein.
Aye.
Counselor Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0 to 1.
And Mr. Administrator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item is Target has closed up the downtown project for the winter, except for any emergency repairs. This was decided to allow, we did the paving around the crosswalks and the painting, and that the weather conditions were deteriorating. They have met substantial completion, but there are still a number of items to address in the spring. So that number of $750 per day, once we reopen in springtime, the penalty goes from $750 to $500 per day, according to the contract. Bricks that have cracked will be replaced, but it was determined with the Public Works Director and the contractor that we should leave them right now in case plows do damage. We'd rather have have damaged ones in there right now and just replace them with new ones in the spring. And also the crosswalks still need to be sealed, as well as the lines, while they're painted, they're not painted with the reflector paint or the epoxy that should be, which has a longer life, so that'll be done in the spring as well. One of the things that part of this, and this is back actually way before this project, was the Historical Society requested signs downtown, because if you're not aware that the downtown of Newmarket is on the National Registry of Historic Places, and they've been requesting signs for a number of years to outline that. So we have purchased 3 signs that will be going in the area of the library, somewhere near this town hall and down Jerry Ave, basically outlining the downtown to welcome people to downtown Newmarket. This also is a traffic calming device because it's something else that people look at and slow down. So I did provide everybody with a picture of the sign, and if the ground isn't frozen, Rick will be installing them shortly. The next item is that the Bennett and Sewell well levels. It was questioned whether or not we're still in the drought and what level we're at. even though Macintosh wells come online, the Bennett sewer wells are still 7 to 9 feet below where they should be. So while we have more water, the wells aren't recharging. So there's still the drought situation there, and then until we have something to recharge it, we're going to still have the drought in situation. Hopefully, if we get some slow precipitation this winter, when the ground thaws correctly, they'll recharge the wells this spring. The next is that the Municipal Budget Committee adopted the fiscal year 18 budget as approved by the Town Council at the December 12th public hearing. Now we'll go to deliberative session. As in years past, we are scheduling deliberative session with the school district. Currently, it is scheduled for February 4th at 9 a.m. for the town and the junior senior high school. We are breaking with tradition that we flip who goes first, with the intent that the school may have a busier deliberative session than we do with some of the issues on their ballot. This is a good time to bring up, I did get a request from the superintendent of schools. She would like to come in on the January 4th meeting to make a presentation to the town council on what their plans are, just for an informational, so the counselors can ask questions. I said I'd bring it to the council and see if they're of interest. As of right now, as you can see on the agenda, we have nothing to vote on at the next meeting. MRI is coming in to give their presentation, so I think it'd be.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, so we'll have both presentations that night. And my other intention is to bring in the finance director also to meet the council and to sit in.
Yeah.
So we'll do that at that next meeting. An update for the fiscal year 17 budget. At the end of November, we had 48% of the total operating budget has been expended. Well, this is higher than we were last year. There are no large areas of concern. The library has expended 67% of their operating budget at this time. Well, at the same period last year, they spent 37%. All other departments are on track. The library gets a flat amount. We have no control over each individual line items, but we are monitoring that. We only give them their budget. On the revenue side, we are running higher than anticipated. At this period last year, we collected about $21 million in revenues. We're about $21.5 million. We've seen an increase in motor vehicle registrations of about $20,000 over last year, and building permits are also approximately $20,000 higher than last year. And finally, we did sell the Eagle property. We closed on it last week, and the new owners are going to be getting there soon and start cleaning it up. That's all I have tonight, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions, Councilor Thompson?
On page 44 in the packet, Rick Molaski mentions water breaks are unusual, number of water breaks, and I was wondering if there's any information on why. Do we know why we've had more breaks than usual? Like what sections are?
Go ahead. Make sure before.
Two of them were gate valves that failed, so that's a little unusual, but it just, when I said that, it's just, typically it's a little more colder out.
Yeah.
We had one in the fall up on Durrell, that was a gate valve also, but,
Are they older pipes? Is there,
not really,
any
just,
trucks running across them?
no, just kind of coincidental that they were happening frequently in not really old sections, I would say, would you?
No, I think the biggest reason we found on the one that we just did, the bolts were not stainless steel that were in the valve. So
They were what?
I'm not sure what they were because there was pretty much nothing left of them.
They just rotted.
They rotted away. And I can't quite recall it wasn't the same thing up at
Durrell
was the other one. There was a gasket or something that blew out.
The valves are brass?
No, they're not brass.
Wait, the one that you were saying that because the screws weren't stainless steel.
The valves are, they're like a composite coated. And then they have, usually now, we make sure all the new valves have stainless steel bolts
Right.
that hold them together, hold the bonnet together, and hold the flanges together. So we had to slowly pull
Okay,
one out
so
at
we
a
weren't
time.
having a mixed metals thing, it's purely the elements
No,
of whatever those
it-
bolts were made of that, okay.
Correct. And I don't know how long those pipes have been in the ground, but they're not that old.
70s, 80s, I'd say. Durrell's 80 years, but 1980s.
and it was the fire line to the high school, which was the one that went.
The most recent, yeah. That was a tap and sleeve that had old bolts, not stainless, and they rotted away and it leaked.
I think it was a good time to bring up something, a technical aspect of the meeting. We all need to be near microphones. They're having a hard time hearing it in the public. When we record it, so either project your voices, but also be near the microphones. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't go too far, Sean. I wanted to ask about recharge after Council Wines.
I have one more question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
In the IT report, I've mentioned this, the library having access to accounting. Page 53.
Yep.
The library should have access to our accounting program, software, whatever.
It's so they can submit POs and check requests digitally instead of dropping off paper ones.
Or emailing them.
Or right, but in our computer system, you can do it through the software, and it's
Okay.
less time. So it's just allowing them to do that as well.
So it's more for Gazinta, not Gazada?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Council Wines.
I have a couple, one question and then a comment. Is there a reason why the library budget is so?
One of the things that we did find recently that the library trustees awarded a number of significant pay increases to their employees. On our side, on average, we gave between 1.5% to 2% pay increase. Those who had stellar performances received about 2.5%. We were looking at percentages in the 7% to 8% for the library trustees.
And what happens if the library extends its budget? Right.
We stop writing checks if they go over.
Okay, so that was my question. I wanted to also make a comment about the police report. It was mentioned that there's a dramatic difference in overdoses in town. In 2015, and I just think it's important for the public to hear this, in 2015 there were 45 overdoses and 4 confirmed deaths. And in 2016, approximately 20 overdoses and 2 deaths. And I just think kudos goes out to our police department and fire department for all the work that they've done around this issue. So thank you.
So, good.
Yeah.
Sean, just a question about recharge. When the ground freezes,
Yes.
because we're sharing the Mac well now with the Sewell.
Bennett and Sewell, yes.
So they're all, and is the Mac running pretty much full-time now,
It is.
in conjunction with those?
It is running, yes, but it's running restricted because the state is requiring us to do it on start it up on a slow basis.
No, but is it now running full steam or not?
It is, right now, we're running it Monday through Friday because we have had a glitch with one of the flow meters and we're waiting for a flow meter to come in. So we're pumping, depending on the day, probably about 70,000 gallons a day into the system.
So once that glitch is consummated and repaired,
Yes.
I'm assuming it'll be running 7 days a week kind of?
Yes. We were running 7 days a week for a while, and then we had a problem with a bad flow meter. And
So a couple of things. Would you expect the recharge of the Sewell Bennett to increase now that you're using the Mac?
I would not expect it to happen
And
currently.
that's because the ground is frozen?
Correct.
So if we get 4 inches of rain tomorrow, for the sake of argument, it's going to just not absorb at all?
It's possible that some of that will absorb because it's in the sand pits. It just depends on how bad those sand pits are frozen. That's the best I can say.
So what generally happens when you get a lot of rain in the winter? Does it run off?
It tends to run off, yes.
And is it captured at some point for the wells, or is it just lost?
It's lost. Yeah.
Okay. And the only way I'm assuming that it wouldn't be lost is if you had a fair amount of snow and it went into the snow, and then when the snow melted in the spring, then it would maybe absorb more.
Correct, correct. I mean, one of the best things that could happen is that you get a lot of snow early, so you don't get a lot of frost.
The reason I'm asking is because I would have assumed that with the MAC running now, even if it's only 5 days a week,
Yes.
I would have assumed that the Sewell and the Bennett would have started to recharge a little bit, even without getting a lot of rainwater. Right, because a lot of their water comes from underground, doesn't it?
Correct, but the history back in 2001 and to 2000, it took from 2001 to 2005 for us to get back to the levels where we were at when we had our drought prior. It took a few years, even with running the water plant. And that was partially because it was dependent on how much rainfall you get. I think the largest issue that we have is we're still using a considerable amount of water out of those wells. So you need to get enough rain to sustain that, and you need to get the water on top of that to start to recharge the wells. So it's kind of, you need the rain to fill the wells that you're taking, plus you need the rain to get the recovery. So it's kind of a double.
If you shut off the Bennett and Sewell completely, nothing would recharge?
I can't, I would have to see how that would work. We have not, I'd have to go back to look at 2001 to 2005 because we completely shut off the Bennett and Sewell wells, completely, and then we just ran the water plant for 4 years. So we do have some history on that.
That's why, I was just trying to figure out why it wouldn't be recharging a little bit, that's why.
Yeah, they've come back, they're basically staying steady. They've come back a little bit. The Sewell well was pumping around, when the wells were on, was about 62 feet down, and now we're at 61 feet. But that's a large amount. When you talk 7 to 8 feet of water, 7 to 10 feet of water, you're talking, that depth over a whole area. So it's a substantial amount of water that has to come back.
Yeah, those aren't bedrock wells for safety.
No, those are sand. Yeah, those are gravel.
The MAC, and excuse me, last question, the MAC is a bedrock, isn't it?
Correct, correct.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Weinstein?
Completely different topic. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Charlie.
Steve, I was wondering if you had an update on the memorandum of understanding with the school district. If anything's happened since, I didn't have a chance to watch the school district meeting, and I just...
My understanding is they approved as the council requested. So it's gone through and we're all set.
Great.
Seeing no other questions, any committee reports?
Budget met on the 12th, which Steve mentioned in his report, and the Budget Committee approved or recommended the town budget unanimously. And then we had another meeting that, unfortunately, there was a mix-up with the posting, and so that meeting has been rescheduled. Our next scheduled meeting is January 8th, which is a Monday, and then the public hearing and that's to review the school warrant article, and then the public hearing for the SAU budget will be on the 12th.
Any other reports? Councilor Burns?
Yep, the planning board met on Monday. And I'm going off memory, I apologize, my laptop decided to reboot. So we had a public hearing for the application, I think it was 34 Wadley Falls, I believe, to divide that lot, and that all the waivers and application for that was approved. And then another item was the Grape Street, that went to court, and it was found in favor of the town and the planning board.
Turning it down.
Yes, right, to stay with the decision of the planning board.
Just for clarification,
Yes.
interrupted, that had to do with design standards, and
Yes.
the town had the right, just for the record. For the
Correct.
people, they had the planning board had the right to give guidance for the
Yes,
standards, so to speak.
exactly, yeah.
Design standards.
Correct. Councilor Pike, did I miss anything?
Well, I would just say, in addition to what you just said, Chair
levy. It also, it was, even in our design standards were not highly specific, but they did speak to retaining the character of the surrounding buildings, and that was sufficient for us to have, asked the developer in this case to provide some elevations and that reflected that, and that was the nature of the topic of the suit. And
I thought it had to do with brick and a whole lot of things.
Right, but that wasn't all highly spelled out. That's the point I'm making. But it was the character of the neighborhood.
Right.
And there was the discussions around that, and we were within our, we had gotten a legal opinion before we made that decision, and it was held afterwards. So I think the other thing that I would just update on, we're having to move on some of the areas that go back to our prioritization that came out of the future land use chapter. We have a workshop on the 10th of January, I believe it is, and a meeting. So there's a workshop and a meeting, and the subcommittee is going to try to meet before the workshop as well. So they're trying to fit in several meetings in the month of January.
And I got a letter, even though it's in the correspondence, but it's tied into this, from Eric Waterman. It was in our packet. I'm sure people saw it. I can't remember which meeting, but I think it's in February. But don't hold me to that. I think it was in February. He was talking about maybe having that joint meeting with the council, which I think is a good idea. So after your subcommittee does their thing, then maybe both boards can get together and discuss, because we ultimately have to implement whatever recommendations were made by the planning board.
Right, and I think in our packet, it's in our packet, there is the letter from the planning board that a couple of the prioritization items were felt to belong more, dealing, for example, with junkyards and design standards. Those are felt to belong more clearly with the council than with the planning board, so they're more or less.
But it would be good to have that conversation, I think.
Right.
Because, I don't know, but I made my opinion felt that I think design standards in certain areas of the town is important, so we don't have something that people might find to be inconsistent with the character of the town.
Right, and I agree with you, and I think it's clearly, and part of what the advice we got is you can, not so much in the ruling, but it is clear that, even though the ruling prevailed, it's better to address these in advance rather than try to do it when you're not happy with the result.
I would agree with that. Council Weinstein?
Just with February being really right around the corner, if we're going to plan an extra meeting, or, if they would, I don't know, if they would come to our meeting or however that would work, but maybe if we could talk about that at our first meeting in January, to come up with a date.
My intention was to ask you after the letter, and say
Okay.
that off week between the two meetings, the second week in February, to try to schedule for that Wednesday, Tuesday.
Perfect.
So, if you want to reach out to, I can call Eric, or...
No, you can send a letter back.
And we can work that out, and I think it would be good for the boards to meet. Because I think in the charter it says the chairs, but I really think the council, I think the boards, I think it would be beneficial that the boards meet, to be very candid with you. Any other committee reports?
It wasn't, I actually missed the meeting, but I've talked to Diane since, and just because I haven't given you a report on the dam committee in a while, I will mention that there was a meeting held, it's mentioned in our packet, but I think it's worth just a brief touch on. There was a meeting held with the Durham town engineer about the culvert replacement up at Long Marsh. And if you remember, when we went back for we started out last year, we went out with a request for proposal for the stability analysis on the spillway, and we had engineers come in, and then essentially we reached a place where we realized there were some challenges with our model, and the Lamprey is this really complex flowage system with a flow split and everything else. And also we became aware around that time that things were happening, not only the 108 rebuild and how that played out, and some of those changes had to be redesigned because of this flow split issue, but that Durham was moving forward with with their Long Marsh
culvert replacement, which we thought, since the culvert was going to be bigger, would in fact send less water towards the McAllen under high flows. That was the hope. It turned out to be good that we went through the exercise. I think you can say it was good we went through the exercise, but what actually was also not apparent to us at first, but was true, was that not only the reason why they were doing the Long Marsh project was to make sure that Long Marsh Road didn't flood under high water situation. So they were expanding the culvert cross-section, but they were raising the road a lot. So actually, it meant that under high flow situations, more water would come towards the McAllen Dam. So that was the topic of that meeting, and essentially, the correspondence that's taking place with the Dam Bureau at the state, et cetera, Durham's going to have to not do that. They can't send more water towards the McAllen, so that will require re-engineering on their part. So we may be fairly quick to the point where we go out for proposals that are pretty specific this time. We may be getting closer. It depends on whether we have to wait for more resolution up in Durham, or they may just say, go ahead based on what you've got, and we'll see. But that's kind of where we are in time.
Seeing no other lights? Under resolutions, page 67, you have a motion to accept 2016-17-14 relocation of water and sewer utilities as part of New Hampshire DOT bike lane project.
So moved.
That's second.
Second.
Who's going to give the...
What this is you've already approved the project. This is the part of the bike path installation, the second part of the 108 project the state's doing. But as part of that, we're also going to be relocating and upgrading our water and sewer lines in the area. We've already done the water lines, so we need to contribute our portion since there are utilities underneath that. We currently have $600,000 set aside in sewer for the relocation of that, and $40,000 set aside for the water, which was a return from the project that we had the last 2 years ago now. They went out to bid. Initially, the price was anticipated to be $527,047. The total budget estimate with contingencies came in at $367,613. What this resolution does is authorizes me to withdraw the funds and to do that project when the state comes in and upgrades 108 from the capital reserve funds.
And just for the record, all of these reserve funds come from the rate.
That's correct.
Et cetera.
That's correct.
Any questions from the council? Go for it.
Councilor Burns.
Aye.
Councilor Bowden.
Aye.
Councilor Pike.
Aye.
Councilor Thompson.
Aye.
Councilor Weinstein.
Aye.
Councilor Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Do I have a motion to accept resolution 2016-17-15 water and wastewater system build-out analysis?
So, second.
And Sean's looking like he's excited. You want to come up?
Let him have this one.
So I was directed from the town administrator to do an request for proposals to do a water demand study and do a sewer capacity study. And it's basically a 20-year build-out analysis. So the last time we did it for the water department was 2004 and 2006. So it's been a long time since we've evaluated our water needs or projected out what our water needs are going to be. So it is time. Also, part of this study is to look at the Bennett and Sewell wells and look at what the safe yield is, because obviously with them dropping as low as they have, we are taking more than what the safe yield is. So that's what that's looking to do. On the sewer side, the last time we did a sewer capacity study was back in 2010. So it's projected out to 2030. As everyone knows, we're constructing a facility for 0.85 MGD. A lot of the stuff for the water and the sewer, some of it, because it's a build-out study, could be used, so you get some economies there. But the cost to do the sewer is $9,992, and the cost to do the water is $20,468. Looking back at my notes, back in 2010, I think we spent around $10,000 on doing a sewer capacity study, so that it's right in line. We did send it out to 30 different engineers. We had some responses from some engineers saying that they were really busy and they were not going to put in for it. Wright Pierce was the only engineer that put in for this project, so it's the only bid we received.
Any, Councilor Thompson?
Okay, see if you can follow this, the math on this. This is always what I'm afraid is going to happen, and I don't. Okay, going back to the prior resolution, and I promise this will make sense. We were taking $331,000 from the sewer capital reserve fund, and $34,000 from the water capital reserve fund.
Yes.
Okay. According to the notes here, in the sewer capital reserve fund, there's $600,000. Minus 331 leaves us $269,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In the water capital reserve fund, it says there is $40,000. We're taking $34,000 out of that, which leaves us $6,000 in the water capital reserve fund.
Okay, I believe in that second resolution, it's a typo. There is actually some money in there that's undedicated funds.
And that's what I'm trying to find
Yeah.
again, because that was my question, is it does say in the next resolution, and keep in mind, I am a fan of this resolution, I'm trying to just make sure that we have enough money. Because once I got down to the second resolution, where we say the same fund has the same amount we haven't taken out for the first resolution, that leaves $6,000 in the water capital reserve fund that we're trying to take 21 grand from. So,
Right now, there is $1.167 million in the sewer capital reserve fund.
right,
Okay? $600,000 has been set aside for the North Main Street project, okay? Which we're not using all that $600,000. There is also another $320,000 that's set aside for pump station improvements. And then there's also $155,000 set aside for truck replacement, which leaves a balance of $92,650 for undedicated sewer capital reserve
no
funds.
problem there. But on this second resolution.
Yeah,
that we're
I
talking
caught that
about,
earlier.
Resolution, it says withdraw $20,468 from the water.
Water.
capital-
So then I can go over, I can,
How much do we have?
In the water capital reserve, there's $1,187,450 as of October 21st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was the one bit of, if it's in here, I apologize, I'm not
It
trying to
is
get
in
in.
there.
I saw the sewer one, but I didn't see the water one.
yes, and the water fund actually has, once you take that 40 grand out, there's around 90,000 in undedicated capital reserve funds. So 20,000 could come out very
Okay.
easily.
I just didn't see that water
Yep.
fund breakdown in the backup documentation.
I
here,
caught
so-
that on my way in when I was looking at it, so,
So we have the money.
Yes.
yes, we have the money to do
Thank
it.
you.
Councilor Pike.
On the Wright Pierce, it'd be page 76 of our packet, where they have a bunch of things. This is, I'm specifically talking about their item number 9 in that Wright Pierce.
Yep.
And it's page 2 of 3 in their section, where it talks, coordinate with the town planning department and perform a build-out analysis. And I think one of the things that's also been a topic of discussion around water, at least in some of the conversations I've had, has been, where it's mentioning, potential rezoning down in the area out towards New Road and those areas, is that some of that would be wells and not municipal water for the probably foreseeable.
That's the discussion they have with the planning department. So ideally, what they do is they look at the topography, they look and see what could be built where and what's the possibility of it being built there. And so they look at landscapes, they look at topographies, and they look in approximation of where it is to the water system. It's a whole big thing that they look at.
Right, and I think the point I'm trying to make is that there may be two aspects to sort of what we need to do in terms of planning at the town level that are related to water. One is what's the capacity of our municipal and our water supply, and how does that impact. The other may be how do we protect existing wells, because we've seen evidence of saltwater intrusion when there's drought conditions, and I don't know if this study is going to give us any information about how we should be thinking about protecting our wells in the area. It's close to the bay.
Okay, and that's if there are some wells close to the bay that we do go after and get. I think basically what they're looking to do is determine what our next 20-year needs are. Inventory what we have. If there is a discrepancy in that we need more, then they're going to try and help us figure out how we're going to get there, whether it's curbing development or
Our
not.
wells haven't had the intrusion of salt water. You're saying private wells.
I'm saying it's really, it's somewhat of a different topic, but
Right.
closely related. If you're looking at water in a lot of these areas, they can be impacted by, drawdown. And I think there's also been interest in how do we make sure we're thinking about those issues as we determine density in some of our areas.
We're just studying our wells at this
Yes.
point, though. Yeah.
Right, but it seems, but I bring it up there because he mentioned the planning board, and I don't know if there's a companion study we should be thinking about there, or it's a part B that we do later on that's specific to the town. But I think that's an important topic as well.
If we permit a new well with the state, we do all that stuff. So, and whether we're going to impact somebody's wells.
Right, I'm not so much thinking of, I understand this will address those questions.
Those
but there's
questions,
the
yeah.
other question of how much development can go on without starting to make and have whole areas end up with salty wells that aren't salty now, without the municipality doing
That comes from the planning board on this one, because this is only studying our infrastructure. Those are private wells that the planning board can study as a whole.
Right.
But we need to.
But
This is just ours.
So that's my point. Is
Yeah.
It won't be addressed by this.
No,
We need to
we're
do
just
it as a
studying our
separate
system.
process. Okay. Thank you.
So just along that line, there were recommendations made by the EDC, for example. The industrial park, I think, is on, does it have town water? Sean, I thought it did, but maybe it
Yes,
doesn't.
it does. It has town water, but not town sewer.
I'm not sure if they ran any, is it on sewer or not?
No, it is not.
So, just because it was a recommendation and it is hypothetical, there was a recommendation made to, and we'll probably fall into the purview of this, but maybe we can get some clarification from Bill Braun or somebody who's, at Wright Pierce on this. So we made a recommendation, I believe, to look at the previous TIF district, which has been, as people know, not developed, and change it to residential, and there was a recommendation made by Stratford Regional, and then by the town to potentially look at a little lower density, 3-acre zoning versus 2-acre zoning. I don't know if those areas where the Ham and the Wilson property are, where the old Bodett Farm would be on town water or not. I just don't know if they ran lines under there or if it's feasible. But I guess the question is, if that did at some point go to residential, because when they're looking at a lot of the older properties, or, excuse me, not older properties that have not been fully developed.
Yeah.
And I'm using that as a hypothetical example, but there are other areas in town that are fairly large that have not been developed, that have been families for years. I think it would be helpful if they gave feedback to the town if they had to be on wells, or if they would be serviced by, like the golf course. I remember when they did the golf course, they had to verify that they'd have enough water for the 50 homes, and that would not impact our water supply. I kind of remember that discussion. I remember initially the Mills was targeted for about 50 units, and they have about 100 units there, as far as rentals. So I would hope that when they do this build-out, they get as much feedback as they can, because a lot of, my understanding is that some of the previous plans, which I've looked at, you know, the 2000, I think, what was it, 2090, was the last one done, Sean?
2004 was the one done by Metcalf-Eddie.
You know, a lot of the feedback, I think, from that came from different individuals, you know, sort of people that have been in town a long time and whatnot. If we're going to spend this kind of money, it would be nice if they dealt, and I'm not saying anybody had ill intent or whatever, but just from the sake, from the standpoint of accuracy, it would be important, I think, to make sure that they have an accurate understanding of, you know, the properties that could potentially go on town water, and how that will impact if they're built out.
Yeah.
Our wells.
So ideally, what's going to happen is they're going to look at the town and look at everything, and then they're going to determine what the likelihood of things being built are within the next 20 years. And they'll have a safety factor built into it. So they're going to go to the planning board, they're going to go to different areas, and they're going to say, okay, all this area could be built in, but what's the likelihood of it being built in this next 20 years? Based on, you know, if you have a booming economy, or if you have a, you know, or if it tanks. So that, you know, it's kind of like a best guess of what's going to happen to try and plan from. And
There is town water on New Road up to Birch Drive, correct?
yeah, yes, there is. There's also water down on the other end.
Where the Johnson property.
Yes, because it comes down, goes under the tracks and around from the other side, from the down at the railroad crossing, the railroad station.
And just last question: is there town water under the tracks into the east of the tracks? You know.
No.
So
No.
that would be a line. Because I thought way back in the day, Al Dixon had tried to run some lines, but maybe not.
We did not run the lines. We bought
Discussed, but not done.
we bought the sleeves to do it, but it never got done.
Okay. Thank you. You know, it would be good, you know, to Councilor Fite's point, you know, when they're doing this, to sort of look at the potential, because if they bought the sleeves, you know,
Well,
there's some intention of developing that area.
That's the whole idea. They're going to inventory what we have, what our capacity is, and then try and figure out what the 20-year build-out is. You know, what we're going to see. So they're going to go really through it hard and meet with the planning board and do all those things to try and figure out exactly what it's going to be. So then they're going to take what we have for our inventory and say, you need this much water to meet your 20-year demands. And if we don't have, you know, that, if we don't have the capability to get there, they're going to try and help us figure out how we get there, or how we curve growth, because we don't have that capacity.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Please call the roll.
Counselor Burns.
Aye.
Counselor Bowden.
Aye.
Counselor Pike.
Aye.
Counselor Thompson.
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein.
Aye.
Counselor Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Page 79, Resolution 2016-17-16, amending the Administrative Code, creation of the Department of Buildings and Grounds. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second.
Yep. One of the things, the town council has had a goal for a number of years to find efficiencies, and much like we recently did with the school district, the council, the two entities have been talking of ways to share services. One of the ones that has come up first was the finance department to share a finance director, and the next that was discussed would be having a shared buildings and grounds / facilities director. The school currently has no individual in charge of the facilities, while the town has a buildings and grounds department that works under the Department of Public Works. If we were to do this, my recommendation would be to create a Department of Buildings and Grounds that would be independent of the Department of Public Works. That department would oversee not only buildings and facilities, but cemeteries and grounds and parks. And the department head would be answering directly to me, or the town administrator, instead of the Director of Public Works. One of the to do that, and pursuant to the section 4.12 of the charter, I can recommend to the town council the creation of a new department. So this is the first step in order to go further to have a combined buildings and grounds department with the school, is that first I need to create the department separate from the Department of Public Works. In the future, you'll see the job description as well as a similar memorandum of understanding with the school on sharing services with the hiring of a facilities director. One thing I did want to let the council know, and as the council has said, understands that updating the administrative code is a priority for this coming year. When I looked at this to create the new department, the last time the administrative code was updated was the year 2000. And pursuant to the current administrative code, there's technically only 2 department heads, which are the Director of Public Works and the Chief of Police. This is not what's done in practice. We have many department heads, including planning, fire chief, code enforcement, IT, and my recommendation is to adopt this as a resolution to create a Department of Public Buildings and Grounds and allow me to rewrite the entire code. And I attached it to the report for your information, the current administrative code. So again, this first step is to create the department. It's not going to change really anything operational at this point in time. My intention is the department is created. The Public Works Director will be the head of it until such time as we hammer out creating having the position for a Director of Facilities or Director of Buildings and Grounds.
Any questions? Councilor Thompson.
Okay. I think the council does agree that overall the administrative code needs to get looked at. My concern with this one is that we are setting a precedent for creating a new department, specifically building and grounds, when I feel like we really haven't discussed it and how it actually is going to work. I have notes here, things like Public Works has all the trucks, the vehicles, the staff, the administration. Do we know how the Director of Building and Grounds is going to get around, or where is the equipment? Does he have to call Rick Molosky every time he wants something and share it between departments, that sort of thing?
That will be something we will hammer out for some of the smaller things. That yes, if you look in the budget, the Buildings and Grounds Department already has line items for equipment, vehicles, and all those items.
But it's under Public Works right now, and you can't take half a vehicle and give it to the new Director of Public Works, the buildings and grounds.
Currently, though, those vehicles are still, there isn't a half a vehicle under Buildings and Grounds and half a vehicle under Public Works. They're sharing some of the duties, for example, sidewalk plows.
Right.
That's currently being done by the Buildings and Grounds crew. That will continue to be done by Buildings and Grounds. That's not going to change. They don't do plowing of the roads. That's the public highway crew. They do some parking lots, but that's Buildings and Grounds as well. So that's not going to change, and that equipment is still listed budgetarily under that entity, and the roads and highways has a separate one. So we already have those separated.
Okay, but it's all under the Public Works Department right
Correct.
now. So let's just take Mr. Gregg and Mr. Molosky at this point and how that, for lack of a better term, hierarchy works. Everything is within the department. Or Buildings and Grounds is within that department. Creating a separate department for this without some of this being fleshed out, and just feels like every time the police chief needs to do something, he's gotta call Mr. Malasky for a cruiser. It's a totally separate department, and I'm not sure who's gonna report to who and who's gonna share what. Let's say there's 2 pickup trucks. The Buildings and Grounds got the pickup trucks, and they might still need them as a separate department, but Rick's gonna need a pickup truck in the winter to go do something. I mean, how does this sharing between departments go? And who works for who? What do we do for administrative help?
Administrative help was something we'll have to determine what the load is going to be as soon as the individual comes on.
And the other side of it for me is that there are people that handle, while there's not officially somebody at the school handling those buildings. They do have janitors, custodians, whatever the term. Who do those people work for? Are they going to continue to report to the school board? To the superintendent?
And that's going to be the next step. First thing I wanted to do is break out the Buildings and Grounds to have its own department on our side. We're going to come through a similar thing like we did with the finance director. We're going to come up with a memorandum of understanding. It's going to look almost pretty similar to that, except that the buildings, instead of, like, the finance director is currently reports to the superintendent contracted through me.
But it's still part of your department.
Yeah. It's going to be the flip. The proposal that we're going to come forward is that the Buildings and Grounds director is an employee of the town, and the school's going to contract with us. They're going to be overseeing the same situation with the custodians of the school. They'll have somebody who will be coordinating with them. But it also have additional workforce to assist because we'll have people on the town side. Back to equipment. Equipment is already separated. There is the trucks that are paid for Buildings and Grounds are through Buildings and Grounds, and equipment's through Buildings and Grounds. If the DPW needs it, we share it. It's the same as water and sewer. The vac truck is purchased by water and sewer.
Right.
If it's needed by DPW, they pick up the phone and say, "Can we use it?" and they bring it over, unless it's being used somewhere else. We share between departments that way currently.
But with 2 separate departments, again, that's all under Mr. Malasky's umbrella.
Water and sewer is
to some
not.
extent.
We broke that off a few years ago.
Okay.
Sean reports directly to me. It was never codified in the administrative code. That's one of the things that we also noticed. I think that was done my first year here, because there was an extra step in there that didn't make sense. So currently, Sean reports directly to me. He controls all equipment through water and sewer. Same thing's going to happen with Buildings and Grounds. In the meantime, Rick will be the head of the Buildings and Grounds department until something is hammered out. And all equipment under there is the same sharing arrangement. When the time comes that it's completely autonomous department, DPW needs something like an extra truck. They'll pick up the phone and say, "Hey, we need an extra truck. Can we use something today?" Same sharing that we currently do. We've never had a situation where somebody said no, unless it was they're using it or something's down.
Well, and I guess that's
That's my question, is now we have split one up, now we have a 2-handed monster, there's just one. And added to that, we have additional, on the school side, there is the superintendent. If the superintendent needs something done, whatever, I think I'm feeling like we've got a lot of heads here and a lot of details we don't know. My feeling is that I am not for doing this now, quite honestly, because we are putting up a building and then looking around for people to fill it. I feel that that's backwards. If I or anybody else is not real comfortable with setting this up from now until the future and writing it into the code without being entirely sure how it works, I think that's setting a really bad precedent. I think this can be done once more details are in there about how this is going to work, who people are going to work for, who the custodians are going to report to, all of that. So I would be much more comfortable putting up that building once we know who's going to occupy it and who's going to be living on what floor.
I want clarification. Are you saying by building, you're not?
No.
You're not saying high school.
I would speak literally.
Okay.
I would speak literally.
Okay, because I'm getting confused with the high school.
I don't.
Yeah. But you're saying I was just getting confused with the high school, so I just
feel
wanted to
like
make
we're
it
putting the cart
okay.
before the horse here and rushing into this where I feel like I have more questions. I will stop talking, probably other people do, but I just feel like we're not ready to be here yet because we don't know. I'm not sure that I'm real positive on how it's going to work. It doesn't mean I'm against having a facilities director. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm a little concerned about how this is all going to work with not only two different companies, but now a separate department needs to be one.
If taking out the school side, the sharing the services of the school, I would be recommending this anyways. Currently, we have a committee, for lack of a better term, about 4 people who are doing the buildings and grounds director position. It's the public works director. The finance does some of the bidding and RFPs. The code enforcement officer comes with recommendations, and the supervisor of the division work together and report to me. There's not one person who's focusing on the planning, the long-range planning of our facilities, and coming up with timely repairs, and I think that's a necessity. One of the other parts of this is by having an individual and having a separate department, you cut out the 3 or 4 other people, and they report directly to me. So I will have somebody I can go to and say, well, where are we with the long-range planning of this? Where are we with the other planning for the facilities? Where are we with the dedication of staff? One of the big things, and I'll tell you, the concern was snow emergencies. And I said, well, that's going to lose some people from Public Works. Our intention is to, no, those people are still on snow removal, and it will still continue basically the same operations, just while having a single individual who reports directly to me as a department head. I think one of the things people need to realize also is the number of facilities that we have in town. We're not talking just this building, police, and highway. We're talking the wastewater plant, wastewater treatment plant, wells, all the parks, the downtown as a whole. When I say that, I don't mean the buildings, but I mean the decorative lights, I mean the parks, I mean the benches, everything like that, that somebody can oversee everything and schedule it in for replacement and for maintenance. I think it's imperative that we do this not only for a joint position, but on our own, that we have a separate entity that can oversee all this. In many communities, what we have under the Public Works would be divided not only between either have a buildings and grounds, but parks would be even a separate one, and that would be under recreation. And they would have their own fleet of maintenance individuals and vehicles and situations like that. We're just trying to say, look, we can do this under one department to take care of everything. And I understand.
Or 2 in this case. You're asking to go to 2 departments wherever you want, right?
I'm asking for one buildings and grounds department.
Right, but that's in addition, we're creating another department in addition to Public Works rather than folding it in. And don't misunderstand me, I am for a body, a person to handle facilities townwide, and that includes the school. I am just not sure that I want to create another.
Okay, that's what now I understand what you're
to
saying.
do it.
Yep, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, I think that's cumbersome. If you would prefer somebody that answers directly to you, perhaps the facilities director could be part of the administrator's office.
But that would take, but I would get the person, but not the
Because you're
workforce.
a department head, but you're not a department
I'm not a department head.
Right, but I'm just feeling like there's a lot of questions. I just think this is too soon to actually do this part of it. You'll be working on the whole code regardless. I'd rather see the position actually fleshed out and seeing how we're going to populate it.
Is that good for now?
Yep.
Yeah, I have one question. So if you organize it as you're proposing, now that doesn't require a change in the town charter, right?
No.
You can do that. Do you need our approval, but not a charter?
Right, I can create or dissolve any departments with council approval. I can make that recommendation.
Right. Because I'm kind of, you know, I think there is, I'd like to see a certain amount of momentum, keep this moving forward. I think there's, you know, I know we may feel like we've got some time on this side, but part of what we're trying to do here is have a cooperative arrangement with the school, which is paying 2/3 of these positions from school budgets, and who has a big building project potentially
I
in.
don't see that this precludes that. I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm
No,
not
I-
against the position.
No,
but
I'm not-
I don't know that it has to be a
I'm
different
just-
department, and that's what we're voting on tonight.
I hear you.
Okay.
But I do feel like, since it could be changed if there isn't a need for a different department, I'm inclined in this case to give the administrator discretion over, you know, and if there were, I could see arguments either way. I'm inclined to let the administrator organize this as he's proposing. I don't think it's a bad, I think we have, you know, sort of throughout the MRI report, there are a lot of comments about, you know, that Newmarket's fairly lean. They're kind of amazed that we have a combination public works fire chief. That's not something that's really typical, and it's worked well. So some of that's addressed by this additional department, to me, was a way of making, you know, trying to, you know, recalibrate the loads that are placed on some of the departments that we currently have. And I'm not saying that there's one way, but I think it is something that future town councils, you know, if the administrator says this isn't working, come to the town council, we can change it. But I think it's a reasonable start, and I'm okay with it.
I agree with Councillor Pike. I think that this is a good way to start the process. I do think that this person needs to report to the town administrator. And I think that separating it out is reasonable. I hear your concerns, though. I mean, I don't think that your concerns are unreasonable. But I think that this is just my opinion, that this is the right process moving forward. So I do think that working together with the school is an important part of this process, and structurally, for me, it makes more sense to have that person report directly to the town administrator, and I think it'll make that overseeing of the position a lot smoother, rather than having someone potentially who reported to Rick and then reported to the town administrator. I think that would get a little messy in working with the school, quite honestly. So there are clearly some details that need to be worked out, and I think that will come. But this is also my understanding that this is the first step of the process in even hiring that person, right? So we need to do this before we can start the hiring process.
It's my recommendation to create the department and then hire the director of the department versus hire the director and then whether or not it's a department. Because technically then it's not a department head, it's that the individual reports to the director of public works. Because there's no department that they're ahead of.
I think that's a big distinction when you're recruiting.
So I don't know how quick I'll be. I'll try to be quick. I spoke to Steve last week. Again, I agree with Councilor Thompson on this. I felt like I sort of felt like it was deja vu with the finance again, without having a clearly defined role and responsibility. But this is even more nebulous to me because we've got a job description that really needs some clarification, and I haven't seen a contract with specifying the responsibilities. So I asked Steve about it last week. He told me this was the first step, and I couldn't wrap my brain around it. So I happened to see Alan from, and Steve knows, talked to Alan Gould at MRI when he came in today. And I happened to ask him, and I took some notes just because I wanted to make sure it was clear. My understanding of this role, meaning this facilities person, was, and I believe it was their, meaning MRIs, but maybe I missed something, but that's what I was told, that they had envisioned, and my understanding was we had envisioned, the facilities manager is a single position that would coordinate the maintenance functions within the existing frameworks of the town. In addition, this person would manage the facilities related to procurement, contract administration, and find efficiencies and economies of scale. Meaning this is one person that would do this. The person would also provide guidance for long-range capital planning as it relates to buildings. And this was what Alan told me. It was not our intent that a new department or division would be created, and that was the opposite of what they were looking for or what they were suggesting, because it would be creating essentially another compartmentalizing another silo or another department, so to speak. So my understanding when we started this process was we would have this person with the, in theory, the 30,000 foot view, who would be overseeing the facilities, grounds, etc., suggesting and planning how we should build them, putting the RFPs together. That's why I asked last week if there was any overlap with the finance person, because frankly, I think they'll be working together if they're writing the RFP, meaning this individual. I can't quite understand why this person would be having a staff for the cemeteries, to maintain cemeteries. Excuse me, from my standpoint, this would be a person, for lack of a better analogy, sort of in Matt's role, not in finance, but in facilities, who is looking out for the needs of the town for the school and the town for the buildings, for the grounds. He would be determining what needed to be done, conveying that information in theory to Rick, and Rick would then consummate that, because right now my understanding is Rick deals, meaning Rick oversees the buildings and grounds. So rather than Rick saying, okay, well, I'm not trying to do this because you hear Rick, but if right now they got to do a playground or they got to do a cemetery cleanup or whatever they have to do, in this case, this person would be doing that delegation to Rick through you, in theory, discussing with you his long-range plans, or if we were going to hire the person like that's maintaining the generators for the town or the heating systems, et cetera, et cetera. Not that this person was going to be overseeing 3 people to go out and clean up the cemetery. So I don't understand why, and frankly, I, without the job description, without really seeing what the responsibility is, I don't even understand how the janitorial staff of the school would be under this person. From my standpoint, this is a fairly high-level person who is going to be looking out for the town's long-range plans, particularly with if the school gets done this year or if the vote goes through and someone from the town has to oversee that stuff. Not sending a crew out to do, work around the town. That, to me, that person would be delegating to DPW or whomever, with the appropriate entity. But I just can't envision this individual having, a staff. Why would he have custodial staff under him? I mean, it didn't, or her. It didn't. I saw this person as being a, fairly high-level choreographer, so to speak, for the buildings and grounds. So that was my take on it. And frankly, I can't imagine doing this without knowing exactly how it's going to work. I mean, to me, this whole thing about, last week it was, or a couple of weeks ago, we couldn't, discuss the contract with the school because we didn't want them to not feel like we were supporting it. I'm completely in support of having a facilities person. I think it makes all the sense in the world. But you got to have a plan and a really detailed plan and know what you're going to be doing before you create the position, not the other way around. At least that's my take. I just can't imagine buildings and grounds reporting to this individual. I would think this person would report to you. You guys would come up with a plan for the town, what you want to see happen, and they would then delegate to the appropriate entity. So that's my...
Right. The reason why I separated it from Public Works and had the Buildings and Grounds Department report to this individual is to cut out another step. By doing it, by having this person with no department, there's nobody they can say, okay, we need to, and you're right, it is going to be a high-level thing. They are going to be coming up with the high-level, this is what we need to improve, but also it's going to say, look, guys, part of this is general maintenance. We need somebody on the ground to go do this. Instead of going, okay, I need to go to the Director of Public Works first, and then they can send individuals out to do it. They're already going to have a daily maintenance staff that are going to be seeing this on a day-to-day basis. They can say, you know what, as part of this high-level thing, we need to also make sure we have the day-to-day maintenance being done. That's going to cut out the Director of Public Works. They're going to have the person right underneath them. I think that's just to simplify that on the department level, that it would go town administrator, the director of the buildings and grounds, to the staff, versus town administrator, director of buildings and grounds, who doesn't oversee any staff. Then we have to go to Public Works to go to that buildings and grounds department to have something.
That's not what I said. Just so you quote me right. What I said, he would be delegating if he needed something done at the cemetery or building, the grounds when we did out the ball field, the dirt and whatnot. He would be scheduling that and giving that delegate. He would be delegating that to Rick to consummate. I didn't envision that individual, having calling the staff in to do this and do that. I would think this person would be more delegate when.
More visionary.
And that is the intent, and I think that the Director of Public Works in the situation we have has a lot of different departments underneath them that they're not focusing just on the highways and streets and that sort of infrastructure. That they're also trying to balance it with buildings and grounds. I'm trying to take the buildings and grounds out and have somebody who is visionary, who is the long-range planning for the buildings and grounds, but also has some individuals to help carry that out on the day-to-day basis. Because currently, if we only had the director, but no staff, they can do the long-range planning, but in order to carry out some of that can be done in-house, we'd have to go to Public Works to schedule through them to have the buildings and grounds crew do some of the maintenance.
And what's wrong with that?
I think my philosophy would be have it easier that this individual has people right under them to be able to go out and do it, versus having to go to another department head to request that work to be done. That's I'm just trying to make it one.
Okay, Councilor Burns and then Thompson.
So if I remember correctly, in the MRI draft, and I know a couple of you have it there, so maybe correct me if I'm wrong. But I thought somewhere in there when it came to the Public Works and discussing this grounds position, was part of it was to alleviate some of the load for Mr. Molansky. So if what you're proposing is to have everything then still funnel through Mr. Molansky, it doesn't alleviate anything. All that load is still on him. We've just created another layer. So with that said, I think I'm in support of how it's written, with reporting directly to having their own team, directly to Steve. That's my feeling on it.
Counselor Thompson?
Couple things. In the MRI report on page 59, MRI actually says the possibility of sharing a facilities management position with the school department could greatly enhance the effectiveness of the DPW. It does not say another department. It also says the possibility of recombining the DPW and Department of Environmental Services should be explored and evaluated. It is possible that more efficiency can be achieved by consolidating staff and equipment for both scheduled project work and emergency responses. And that, to me, flies in the face of what's just being discussed about splitting it out. My other question is then, I mean, twofold, some of which we can discuss here and some of it we can't. If we are lightening the Department of Public Works Director's workload, do we revise his job description and anything that ties in with that? Have we thought about that? Does the staff that is doing that work, how do we populate the Department of Building and Grounds with who? Does that mean some people that are currently working for the Department of Public Works now report to the Department of Building and Grounds? Or does Public Works keep its maintenance staff and Department of Public Works hires a new staff? And now we have in effect gone the exact opposite way, in my view, of the efficiencies that we are trying to achieve. And these are questions, this is why I have the question. Again, I'm not necessarily against it, but I'm feeling like we... Oh, sorry.
He's gotta go.
There he goes. I just don't know why there's the rush to do this part of it right now. I don't think that it precludes the job description of figuring out how this is going to work. I just think this is a big step, and if that means we discuss it some more and come back to this at the next meeting, okay.
I just want to clarify something for everybody. There is a separate buildings and grounds staff currently. There is not those who work for buildings and grounds work for buildings and grounds.
So they would migrate over and work directly with this new...
Correct. Currently, they report to the Director of Public Works. They would just now report to this new individual. There's a staff of 2 full-time and then seasonal.
What happens administratively? Does that require, if there's a DPW executive assistant, let's say, that also handles the fire department?
Yeah.
And how many more positions could we be adding here?
And that's something we need to look at the load of the executive assistants for both fire and DPW currently. That's, I think, separate from this, because this is just setting right now that there will be a completely autonomous buildings and grounds department that ultimately will be overseen by a separate director or department head, where currently it's a division of the Department of Public Works. I think
I understand that.
And I understand your concerns as well. I just
feel
want
like this is adding another monkey when we're trying to cook them up.
And that is correct. And that's exactly what Alan said to me today.
Well, I think that's a belief. That's not correct. That's a...
Well, that's an opinion.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, I am absolutely, just for the record, I am totally in support of a facilities person. I cannot imagine, I cannot imagine doing this
Without having that position thoroughly vetted and with a job description that is nailed down, not, because I know there are things that need to be tightened up in that. And understanding time allocation, things of that nature, how the time will be divided by the school. I can't even imagine custodial people reporting to this person, but that's me. I had envisioned this person being a higher level person who was going to be dealing with the contracts for the for the heating systems, making sure if we did any kind of cost-benefit analysis for insulation or windows or all of those types of things, that for me was the value and the benefit of this salary, not sending people to the cemetery to, cut the grass or to clean something up. And I'm not putting that down or saying that's not a valid thing you need to do. I'm saying that's not something I felt this position was necessary for, and I'd kind of like to nail it down. I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse too often, but that's me. Councilor Pike.
Yeah, not that having visited one town makes me an expert, so I'm not overly saying, but I would say that I think this is pretty close to what we observed in Cape Elizabeth. Certainly the person they had that was their facilities director was good at the analytics. They had put in place certain things that were software driven, so people anywhere in the town could put in a ticket requesting work be done, and it could be assigned through the computer system, and people went out and but he had those people, reported through him, and I think so. It didn't seem to bother this person to both manage that set of employees and be the analytics person. He did a lot with proposals. He also did a lot of project management, and so I don't put out there that I know the best way. I don't think. I think this is about finding the right person and being flexible. If this seems to be creating inefficiencies, then I think you can go back. You could change it again. But I'm inclined to give, we've made this a major goal for Steve to make this work, to make to make the town more efficient, to move forward with shared services between the school and town. I'm more willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. I understand both concerns, and I think the hiring of the facilities person is kind of more important to me than whether or not he has its own department. But I don't see a problem with proceeding in that fashion.
I can't even imagine setting something up without having a vetted job description. It's incredulous to me, but I've said my piece, so I'm fine. If the council wants to vote on it, go for it. I can't support it as written. I think we're getting into very slippery slopes here for the benefit of seemingly wanting to. I'd rather see Steve hire a facilities person and have a thoughtful job description laid out than go to this. And absolutely you would have that nailed down before you went to this. And I'm not just bringing this up. I mean, people are quoting MRI. I asked Alan the intent because I wanted to make sure I wasn't thinking wrong. And he verified my concerns. So I think, I think the town is basically, just to finish quickly, I think the town is basically addressed properly, and to analogize it with Cape Elizabeth, where, with all due respect, the facilities person had a full-time plumber and electrician and staff. It was a different deal, number one. Number two, I would have been more respectful if we had taken the Cape Elizabeth job description and then taken the time to apply it to Newmarket instead of just parroting what they had and applying it, because it's basically the job description that I saw was pretty much what Cape Elizabeth had for their job description for the facilities person. That was what I was told. If that's incorrect, then I apologize, but that's what I was told.
I'm not sure.
So assume it's very close, for sake of argument. What I would have done is I would have taken that and I would have said, okay, now that's a good template. What are Newmarket's needs? what is the plan, man? There's just a little too much, I have faith, and flying blind. And the reason I bring this up is not because I'm trying to throw water on it. I'm trying to make sure that when it gets implemented, it works. When I play the devil's advocate and bring things up that I think could go wrong, it's not because I'm trying to kill it. It's because I'm trying to make sure it's vetted properly so there's no unintended consequences, even though I know there'll still be. But at least you're narrowing those. But to just go forward with something, because we're trying to achieve this without thinking it through and without having a really thoroughly vetted job description and memorandum of agreement, which I don't even think we have at this point. I haven't seen a contract. Is there a template for a contract yet for this position?
I think one thing I think we've got to separate is that my intention is to have a separate buildings and grounds department, whether or not we have an agreement with the school.
Okay.
That's my intention. Is that the head of the
that would be fine.
Can I finish?
Yeah.
My intention is to have the supervisor of that department report directly to me. We already have it. There's a supervisor of that division now who reports to the Department of Public Works. My ultimate thing would be, yes, have a shared position with the school. If that doesn't go through, my still recommendation is that supervisor of that division now would report directly to me.
So that's wonderful.
Yeah, I just want to finish. My second part of this is, to the council, is I would like to get, since one counselor had a chance to talk to MRI, this isn't going to, nothing's going to happen in the next week because of the holidays. If it's the wish of the council, we could hold this over for a third reading and everybody can get the same information by talking to MRI, since they're going to be here on the
Yeah,
board.
he's coming in anyway.
I think that's probably the most fair thing.
I appreciate that, and Councilman Zhao,
Yeah.
unless he weighed in with
Yeah, no, he didn't.
If he would be here at the next
I just think
meeting,
it's-
perhaps that's the way to go, because I think we're feeling strongly on the other hand, while supportive of the position.
I mean, my philosophy is I'm separating that. No matter what, even if it doesn't happen with a combined one, I want the supervisor to report directly to me, so we can do more. Because I hear it all the time. I hear that we don't have a plan on when we do a maintenance project in general. Well, it's because I've got so many people trying to do it that I need one person to focus on it. And my thought is, even if the combined position doesn't go through, which sounds like it will, which I appreciate that, I would be recommending this anyways.
So just so you know, because I want to respond to you, I'm in agreement with you. Because it's the first time I heard that you were going to do that regardless. I don't know if anybody else heard that, but that's the first time I've heard you say that to the council. Have you prepared a job description for exactly what you're looking for the town?
I think if it wasn't going to go through for the director of facilities, as we have now, we're discussing now with the schools,
Yeah, just for the town of Putnam.
I would have the individual who's now the supervisor of buildings and grounds report directly to me. So it wouldn't be as high level as we're talking, because we don't have as many facilities, but I still would have an individual who would be doing the longer range planning, overseeing that, and cutting and doing the bidding and proposals.
I apologize, who is that person?
His name, John Prohope is currently a buildings and grounds supervisor.
But this, in all fairness, Steve, the position that we're looking for is another level up, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But if for some reason that failed, I would still recommend to the council reorganize the department to have that department answer directly to town administrator. Because I've been hearing it since I've been here, is that we need to focus on facilities. And I think by having that individual report directly to me, you have a more streamlined prioritization from the council to town administrator to facilities versus what is currently happening. So I'd be recommending either which way.
I'm supportive of
Yeah.
somebody reporting directly to you. My question is whether or not they need a whole staff under them, or they can delegate to to have that done. So that's the question that maybe we should, vet with.
You're right. And I just want to make sure people understand, there currently is a staff doing this. There is a separate buildings and grounds staff that are just doing maintenance of parks, maintenance of buildings.
But they're getting their direction from
The Director of Public Works.
who is?
The Director of Public Works.
Rick.
But I'm just saying, I think we got to take people out of it at this
Okay.
point. I'm saying
I just want to make sure I get the right guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
we should have a person who's reporting directly to town administrator overseeing facilities. And that's just my philosophy, and that's why I made the proposal. We're going the next step by saying we'll share it with the school. If it's the wish of the council, again, we all can get the same information. I haven't had a chance to talk with Mr. Gould since the chair talked to.
Yeah, I
him
just
today.
happened to see him when he came
So
in.
I don't know what the information was either. So I want to make sure, I want to give that clarification as well.
I'd like to hold it over.
Yeah, well, I think it, I think, as I
So you're
said,
coming in first meeting, correct?
you're coming in the first week in January, so it makes sense to have a broader discussion at that time. I think the support seems nearly unanimous for a facilities director. It's a question of how it's organized, and we have somebody that's made recommendations, so I think it makes all the sense to have that vote in the first meeting in January. As your
And just so I'm clear, because I want to make sure I'm on the same page, when you're talking about this person predicated on the report that MRI gave, in other words, that's part of the template for what this position.
Yes,
they're recommending.
absolutely.
Okay, so I think it would be good for him to clarify what we shared, because I asked the question I asked you last week to make sure I wasn't, I was asking the right question, and I think it would be good for the council to be able to have that discussion,
Yep.
since we're basically acting on a recommendation from them.
Yep, that's fine.
Right, although I think in fairness that it was, we started with the MRI efficiency study, but we also had, it was almost parallel. In other words, a lot of what we were doing as far as shared services with the school, the subcommittee formed before we had the report. We've had other inputs besides the MRI input. But
I just want to get it right.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I've had input from the Director of Public Works, that there's frustrations that, he can't focus as much on the buildings and grounds because he has the other areas he has to, and that's part of what the said here, that alleviate that part of that.
We are cognizant of a number of things,
Yeah.
we just,
Yeah, fine.
And not to belabor some of the things that Rick has to deal with now, forgetting this now for a minute, the staff, right? And doing the cleanup of this or that. A lot of the things that Rick has to spend time on now, whether it's RFPs, making a purchase, getting prices for different things for the facilities, et cetera, which has happened in the past in vehicles, that would theoretically fall under the position of this facilities person to some degree, some of that, wouldn't it?
Yes,
not vehicles per se, but the other things.
right, not all of it,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think it's,
HVAC,
but I think that some of that also is falling not only under the Director of Public Works,
finance.
that's falling under finance, the building inspector, just because it's somebody stepping up to do it, and the current supervisor. So it's just consolidated into one person.
So do we need to make a motion to table it?
You'll hold it over for a third reading.
So there was a motion made, does anything have to be done, or we
No,
just
we
don't
can-
act on it?
You just don't act on it. Yeah, we held over.
Pretty staff?
Yep, no, you're right, no. If you table it, then it takes a longer process to take it off the table. The council has agreed to hold it over for a third reading. That's all you have to do, it'll say the third reading.
As long as we don't have to make a
Nope.
motion for that, all right? That being said, thank you, I think that would be good. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Thompson, I didn't see, sorry.
My other question is, while the town administrator was talking about things that the finance director is doing, the public works director is doing, whatever, that this would alleviate some of that. My other question, and maybe you can have some answer of some prep for our next meeting on this, is does that in any way alleviate any of the workload on the planning director? Don't have to answer now. I'm just wondering where it all collects
No,
from, so.
I can tell you that one, no.
Okay.
That's a different project that's going to come along from that study. So.
Okay.
But there are job descriptions that are going to have to be rewritten.
Absolutely.
More heads. Okay, dokie.
Yeah.
All right.
Rewritten or written?
Rewritten,
Rewritten to clean
updated.
up. Yeah, because some of the responsibilities that they have now are going to be
Yeah, I mean, I'll
given to the.
put it right now. When the code enforcement officer zoning went part-time, the zoning officer was part of that was the planner. That's usually not,
Right.
that doesn't happen in
Right.
communities. The zoning officer is the code enforcement officer.
Yeah.
So that's something that's going to be looked at as well to alleviate that situation.
So hopefully everybody can make the meeting on the 4th.
Yeah.
Okay. Last resolution. I'm just going to make sure we're okay to move on. Yeah. Last resolution, 2016-17, resolution relating to the replacement of the windows at the community center. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Apparently they're falling apart
Yeah, when they
from the inside out.
when they went and replaced the siding, they realized that the windows were falling apart and they were barely being held into place. They were basically being held into place by the old siding. They secured it for the winter, so we got proposals to replace the windows for the facility. We received 3 bids. Bragton Construction, which is currently there doing the siding, was the low bid at $11,800. The other 2 is CSB Construction for $18,500, and Nick's Door and Window at $12,856. We're recommending to continue with Bragton Construction for $11,800 to replace all the windows at the community center.
Now, they didn't put it in the original windows, did they?
No.
I'm just,
No.
I had to ask.
It was the original construction company.
Yeah, you had to
Yeah.
ask.
They'll insulate the windows too.
That's a plus.
Which wasn't done.
I'm not even going to bother asking. I'm not even going to ask what the R rating is. I'm sure it'll be very
The
low.
ones that built my house have had.
Please call the roll.
Councilor Burns.
Aye.
Councilor Bowden. Aye. Councilor Pike.
Aye.
Councilor Thompson.
Aye.
Councilor Weinstein.
Aye.
Councilor Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
And other than that, much done. There was a letter.
You do have a correspondence.
Yep, I have a correspondence. Sue.
Shall we read it, or?
Yeah, is that the one from Eric?
Yep.
What page is it on?
That's on 93. I can read it for the public record.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, you wrote it to me, but that's
Yeah.
okay. If you want to read it, go for it. I don't mind.
Dear Chairman Levy, it's to the council. Dear Chairman Levy, as you know, the Newmarket Planning Board in July of this year adopted a new future land use chapter of the Newmarket Master Plan. This chapter was updated following the visioning process, which engaged the community to help to shape the recommendations to be implemented in the future. Among the recommendations are 2, in particular, which will require action by the town council. Those pertain to the adoption of stronger regulations through the property maintenance code and junkyard license and procedures under RSA 236. Please see attached excerpts of the future land use chapter. While I originally thought this would be a planning board initiative, after much discussion, it appears to me more appropriately the function of the town council administration, which has broader enforcement authority over building and property maintenance issues. The future land use chapter recommended that a committee be established which could include the code enforcement officer, a representative of both the planning board and town council, and perhaps someone representing the real estate interests, and a citizen at large to study whether or not the adopted property maintenance code and embark on a comprehensive junkyard regulation program, and 2, draft regulations to be adopted by town council to implement those concepts as deemed feasible. I understand the town council, as its goal setting on December 7th, suggested that the town council and planning board work together in a more collaborative manner on issues of mutual concern. I also understand that there will be a joint meeting of the planning board and town council to be held sometime in February for this purpose. We look forward to the opportunity to discuss this topic, as well as any other efforts underway by the planning board in implementing the Newmarket Master Plan at that time. In the interim, please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Sincerely, Eric Boderman, Chairman, Newmarket Planning Board.
And I do appreciate that, and I think it'll be a productive meeting.
Yeah, and I'll try to schedule something for that first off week in February,
Perfect.
And
as not to impact school vacations as the second one.
And it might be helpful, I know they included some of the language, but if just the land use sections, like if the council could just get a copy, not the whole report, because there's, just specifically what we'll be discussing, I think it would be helpful, so people can have something to reference. So.
Yeah, I I just wanted to make, this is for the general comments by counselors, and I was just going to make a comment that, wanted to say that much appreciate Councilor Weinstein's, you made the comment about the police and stuff, but the role of the community action program on opiate abuse, and that's really been a great collaboration. And, so I think that's an example of what makes the Newmarket community, and it's a great piece of work. And I think, I think there's been a lot of examples of really good collaboration and good work by Newmarket committees. And, I think the facilities work that the school has attempted to do, I give them a lot of kudos for just incredible amount of work put in to try to come up with something that will meet the needs of the community and something that will be supportive. And you can go down. I think the council has had a good year, and I think thank you for your leadership, Chairman Levy. I think it's been, and I mean that very sincerely, and I've been a supporter right along. But I think you can go across the town, and there is a great deal of good work being done by the citizens. So, and I think we hear that from people in the town that's going on. So, thank you all.
Councilor Weinstein?
I just wanted to add something about the Newmarket, the ASAP group, and because there has been a lot of work that's been done over the last year and a half, and in what month are we in? In November, we did a workshop for the community on the science of addiction, where lots of community members have come. Came to that. We've had the police chief from Exeter has attended our meetings. We've had people from the business community and the greater Seacoast community come to our meetings in recent months. So it's been a collaborative effort, not just in Newmarket, but in the surrounding community. And it's really, it's just great to see, and to see people working together to work on this problem that, I think seeing such a reduction in overdoses, and there are lots of reasons why that is, for sure. I mean, Narcan definitely plays a part in that. But to see such a huge reduction is really a sign of hope, I think, and highlights the strengths of our community.
And I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a healthy and happy New Year and holiday season.
To you as well.
And as they say, dab-a-dab-a-dab. That's all,
That's all,
folks.
folks.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Got a second?
Second.
We are adjourned.